This podcast was brought to you by the Magic Candle Company. Relive your favorite theme park memories through the magical sense of smell. Receive 15% off at checkout by using discount code DEBATE and help our channel in the process. Welcome, everybody, to the first official episode of This or That, a Disney debate podcast. My name is Justin.
And I'm Chris.
Welcome to the happiest debate on Earth. Today, me and Chris are going to be battling it out to see which Disney World and Disneyland ride will come out on top between the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. Chris, I want to give it up to you. Which ride do you want to take? Which of the two do you think is the better ride?
So I'm going to be taking Pirates of the Caribbean. Most of my experience with this ride does come from Disney World, as I live in Florida and I am on that ride multiple times in a 3-month period. So I'm constantly taking on the waters of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Although I will say, both rides are must hits every time I'm in the park. I'll take both of those rides over any other ride at Magic Kingdom, and there may be some opinions on that, but over Space Mountain, over Mine Train, over Big Thunder Mountain, I'm taking Haunted Mansion and Pirates. But today I'm going to be going with Pirates for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think Haunted Mansion is the one that I know best. I think it is probably the ride I have ridden the most at Magic Kingdom, so that definitely makes sense for me. We both are more Disney World based than Disneyland based, but Disneyland, the aspects of the Disneyland rides are still available to us if we want to use any of that in these arguments today. So essentially the way that this is going to work is we are both going to list out a few points to sort of open up our arguments, and then we're just going to dive right in, battling it out to see which of these two rides will come out on top. Chris, I want to throw it over to you first. Give me a couple reasons as to why you think Pirates of the Caribbean is the superior ride.
Number one has got to be the storytelling in the ride. Big fan of it. So I can argue the storytelling all day over Haunted Mansion. I think it's par none any other ride at Disney World. I think you're getting an experience there. Number two, which I can also go on for a while, the smell of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's an unmistakable scent. As soon as you step into that musty cellar, you know what you're in for. And I think the music, I think the character building, I think it's a great ride. And there's going to be a lot of different arguments coming from me today.
All right. It's funny that you bring up the storytelling, because that is one of my points as to why I think Haunted Mansion is clearly the better ride. Other things that we are going to bring up today, I think that the ride system for Haunted Mansion is a much cooler ride system than the more traditional boat ride of Pirates of the Caribbean. As well, there's awesome overlays that are done with Haunted Mansion, specifically more in Disneyland than, say, Disney World. But there's a lot more versatility to that ride, and I want to bring up some of those points a little bit later on. But I think the biggest selling point that I have for this ride, something that Pirates desperately, it almost needs, the narration. The narration of Haunted Mansion, I think, it just clearly puts that ride just well over the top. And along with the ride system and some other things that are tied into the narration and how the audio works throughout the whole experience is something that we'll end up touching on. But at first, I want to talk to you about sort of your first point and my first point as well in the actual storytelling. Chris, give me a couple reasons why you think the storytelling is superior on Pirates than Haunted Mansion.
Well, this might be, more of a me thing, but I've always liked Pirates. I know many other kids like Pirates. You want your own pirate adventure. I think you get it with the Pirates of the Caribbean. You get on the boat. You take the little the spin through the Dead Man's Cave there, or Dead Man's Cove. I might be mistaken. But you take your little spin, and then once you go down that waterfall, you're entering a whole new world there. You're entering a world of pirates, of intrigue, of pigs and women chasing pirates. You get it all. I don't know. I think you get a lot of cool stuff. But I think you get to kind of go on a little pirate adventure. You get to see it all. I think it outshines what the Haunted Mansion does. I think the Haunted Mansion is a cute little ride. I was scared as a little kid. I'm sure all my pictures, all my photo pass from back then was me hiding because I was afraid of the ghosts. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't afraid of pirates. You know, I was one with the pirate. I was a pirate when I was a kid. I took my hat. I had my hook, and I was ready to go. I was ready to enter into that world.
So sure, you're saying a lot of things at me, but honestly, I still don't know what the actual story of Pirates is.
Okay,
I mean, when we were on that ride last, there's a lot going on there, which is very interesting and very cool, but a through line narrative I don't really think is there quite like it is for Haunted Mansion.
Well, I think this goes for a lot of Disney rides, is that you are part of the action, you are the story. So when you go there, I mean, you're seeing a step-by-step kind of assault on this little town, which it's almost like a history lesson. And what more does a kid want from a ride than a history lesson? That's what I want.
I don't think any kid has ever wanted a history lesson.
I
can understand the fun, the swashbuckling, the swords, the guns, but oh man, I do not think a history lesson's not something I ever thought.
I wanted to learn. So I think that's what Pirates gave me. But you're seeing the story of a ransack. I don't know pirate terminology that well. I should have brushed up on my pirate terminology, but you see it from start to finish. You know, as soon as you enter that world, down the fall, you're in it. From the galleon assaulting the fort, to the town, to Jack's little journey, to his riches.
You know, I really think that Haunted Mansion has done a very good job at giving you a very clear narrative throughout that whole experience, with it still being nebulous enough, kind of like Pirates is. You know, Pirates feels very nebulous. It feels like you can almost lay in whatever story you want into that overall narrative, or you can watch particular characters or particular scenes and sort of create a through line. And that's very cool that you can have that on different journeys through the ride. You can kind of pick up a different story. There's somewhat similar elements in Haunted Mansion, but especially with the narration, and we'll go more into the narration, there is more of a cohesive story throughout that whole thing. You literally journey through the entire mansion from, the beginning in the stretching room all the way to the ballroom, into the attic, and then through the window out of the attic into the graveyard below. Like, I think it's just so cool. That story to me really gives it sort of that concrete narrative that I'm looking for, while still being able to kind of like see a lot of different things. With that too, I think a big aid to the narrative and how the narrative sort of plays throughout the ride is the ride system itself. For me, the Omni Mover is like leaps and bounds better than a sort of standard sort of like flume ride, log ride, boat ride sort of system. The Omni Mover is one of the coolest things ever, really sort of pointing you in any direction so that you are sort of paying attention to the things that the Imagineers wanted you to pay attention to. And it also has built-in speakers into it. So when you have that literal narration throughout the ride, it's just constantly peppering you, and it feels like it's within your head or right behind you. Very, very creepy, very, very eerie. As far as ride systems and stuff go, you got any rebuttals, man, for your standard flume ride?
One word, and that word is water. I think it's more than a flume ride. We're on, again, this is a journey you're taking by boat. This is a sunset cruise into this pirate's world, which, hey, man, on a hot day, you don't really mind getting splashed by that chlorine smell, that bromine smell that they pump into the water there. You kind of like it. You're like, oh, I smell like chlorine today. That's a good day, at the end of a pirate's cruise. So I get it. I like the idea. I think it's been done. Some of Disney's best rides have that technology. I like the always moving cars. It gets the lines down. Somehow Haunted Mansion's always one of the longest lines, but it gets the lines down by constantly going. However, all it takes is one person to mess that up. If one person slips and falls, that ride, everyone stops. The whole thing stops. So I don't love that. That slows down the ride quite a bit. Every time you're pretty much guaranteed to have a stop. And it could be for a few seconds. It could be for a few minutes, but you're going to have a stop at some point. And I think that's the challenge with it.
That's fair. I didn't think about the fact that it is a constantly moving, ride system, which is neat. But the minute that there's a stop, that entire conveyor belt is going to be stopped. So no matter where you are in the mansion, you're not moving forward. Unlike Pirates or some other ride systems where you'll most likely be able to finish the ride or at least complete whatever portion you're sort of in before you come to a stop.
You get there, even if you're slamming into the back of another boat, which is almost guaranteed, on unloading.
It does feel like kind of the charm of not just a boat ride like that, but particularly Pirates. Like if that doesn't happen, it seems like that was not a good ride.
No. You had a good time when you're soaking wet from one of those cannonball explosions and you are crashing into the back of another boat there. But yeah, ride wise, I'm going to take the boat, 9 times out of 10. I love boat rides in itself. I love that I can take a little nighttime cruise on that boat. So I think, from a personal standpoint, I'm gonna give Pirates the win there. I'm gonna give Pirates the win.
Yeah, I still don't know if I can do that for you. The getting wet is nice on a very hot day, but if you're like us when we just went and one of the coldest times of the year, in Florida, not as fun. It's not the worst thing in the world. So I'm not going to hold that like too much against it, but being able to be completely and utterly dry in the comfort of a doom buggy, that was real nice, man.
Dry is nice.
It's very, very nice. While I do like the fact in Pirates that you can kind of look anywhere that you want, you can kind of really experience and re-experience that ride multiple times. I do think that there's something just so cinematic about the way that the Doom Buggy points you in specific directions. You still have the availability to kind of look around a little bit, but it really sort of draws your attention to certain things. And I just love how dynamic that is throughout the ride. And we don't even have to talk about it. We'll get into the narration later on, but the fact that there are speakers within that, I think is so interesting. Pirates is really cool because you have a lot of the noise is coming from the areas to where the noise is supposed to be made, but having that sort of overall narration inside your head, I think is one of the coolest parts of that ride.
And I get that. I think, in the Haunted Mansion, you're basically sure you're going through the haunted house, but I feel, what you said, it's been more cinematic. It's like you're watching a show take place. You're going through the show rather than you are part of the action. I think when you're in Pirates, sure, you're not, the boat goes one way. It follows the water. But you have a few things I think that are a little more fun, a little more engaging. For one, that big drop at the beginning. Every time someone's gone on that, after you haven't gone on it, in a while, the first thing is like, oh, I forgot how steep that actually was.
It was absolutely intense. Like experiencing that for the first time not that long ago. That was not expected in an old Walt era sort of dark ride, right? Yeah.
No, and spoiler alert if you haven't gone on, but we already said it, so too bad.
Yeah, if you spoiler alerts, if you have not gone on either of these rides, you're doomed. You're in big trouble. We're going to be talking about these very, very extensively. Speaking of cinematics, one of the things that I did want to sort of bring up, and it's not going to be the be all end all of this debate, but I do think that it's worth bringing up. Both of these rides have had movies or movie franchises based upon them. Now, I don't know if we can absolutely get into sort of movie versus movie as a point in this thing. I don't think that that's necessarily fair. I would give the Pirates franchise the sort of leg up in that regard, just because those movies were so massive and so big. That is a massive franchise that Haunted Mansion hasn't really been able to sort of compete with. But the thing that I really wanted to bring up about the movie franchise was the inclusion of Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, and I really did not like that. At the end of the day, I don't think that I mind the fact that Jack Sparrow is in there, but to me it sort of is almost an afterthought. It sort of takes away a little bit from just the pristine originality of everything from like the original ride structure. Where Haunted Mansion, there are the overlays that they do in Disneyland during Christmas, and I think there might be some other versions that they've done, but really the Haunted Mansion at both Disneyland and Disney World is sort of untouched with any of those extra movie references, and it really makes me feel like those rides are sort of original, and original both in the sense that they are the original or more or less close to the original versions of those rides, but also a very original IP, which is something that Disney kind of desperately needs again to do more original sort of IPs and things. How do you feel about Jack Sparrow on Pirates? Do you think that it takes away from the experience? Do you think that it adds to the experience?
I think I think that's a really good point. I think there's definitely two schools of thought. There's two sides to that argument alone. People like the originalness of I think just the ride in itself. Although, like all good things, it always has to come down to a change. I think things have to end. There needs to be a new, and that goes for anything really. You know, where you need to have that change. Walt himself was a big proponent of change, and he wasn't one that I think wanted to keep things the same all the time. From what I've heard and what I've read, I mean, most recently with the Country Bear Jamboree changing, that's been going on for ever, you know, and they're now changing it, making it a little bit different here, updating the songs and what have you. But I think Walt would have probably welcomed that. I ultimately, Pirates of the Caribbean, the franchise itself exploded. I don't know, you know, recently if there's any talks for anything new coming out for the movies, but the movies that they do have, I mean, I think majority of them have really killed it. I think the addition of Jack Sparrow in the ride he's more so, you know, like a fun little twist to the ride. I don't think it's an entire Jack Sparrow story. He's popping his head out every now and then. You're seeing that. So for people that may not necessarily have watched the movies, if they're watching it, they may be none the wiser. Granted that, I'll tell you what, that animatronic is probably the second best animatronic in Disney World. Obviously, first to the redhead in Pirates of the Caribbean, the redheaded pirate. I think everyone can agree with that. But it's a great. It looks good. It looks good. All of the Jack Sparrows in there, they're moving. How many times when you're riding that ride is a little kid saying, "Is he real? Is he real?" It looks good, and it does kind of look a little out of place. All of the old pirate animatronics have this almost cartoonish nature. So I would say that would be the one thing that looks a little bit off. Is all the other animatronics there, they look like cartoons in a sense, and I don't know. I think it's just a design choice. I think it was an older animatronic first, but ultimately, I think with the Johnny Depp, I'll take it over not having
it definitely is like a more modern animatronic, a more realistic looking animatronic than the older, like more classic Walt era animatronics. But I think that is really what gives that ride its charm, is that like Walt's originality, which is kind of a point for me in my eyes for Haunted Mansion, because it has the majority of the animatronics are sort of original era, or they at least have the same vibe, because I know that they've done a lot of work to that, especially bringing things like the Hatbox Ghost in. That's a very new version of an old idea. So it still has a lot of that charm, that Walt era charm, with some more modern technology. I know that people would crucify the Imagineers, and like honestly, probably us as well, if they were to do something like remove Pirates of the Caribbean completely from, you know, Disney World in general, Disneyland in general. But it would almost be interesting to have seen it been replaced with a modern Pirates of the Caribbean ride and doing an actual Jack Sparrow story. Again,
so that's what I think they do good in. I mean, the benefit of Disney parks is that they have a lot of them. So I know we're not really talking about overseas parks, but Shanghai, I believe it's Shanghai. It's Shanghai or Tokyo. But that Pirates of the Caribbean ride is insane looking. There is some much more modern technology, obviously, that goes into that. You really see a lot more cooler stuff, more related to the movies in those. So I think that they have the ability to do that in other places without taking away too much of the original Disney World. I think you go to Disney Shanghai for that. You go to Disney World to see, you know, more of that original, not wanting to take that away.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that definitely makes sense. And I know a lot of people would, again, crucify Imagineers and Disney execs if they were to remove that sort of a thing. But just having the modern Jack Sparrow implemented within a more classic ride does feel a little off to me, where I think something like the Hatbox Ghost and some of the more modern upgrades to the Haunted Mansion feel like they still fit in that world, and it doesn't feel too off. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and not that the Haunted Mansion is super new as far as queue goes. I know that Disneyland either has a new queue for Haunted Mansion now, or it's very soon coming. I know that they're doing a lot of work to the Disneyland Haunted Mansion. But the queues for Haunted Mansion versus Pirates of the Caribbean, while I think that they both have that sort of like semi underwhelming as far as like today's rides go queues, like something like Rise of the Resistance or some of the other rides that have very immersive queues. They definitely have an older Disney queue, but I think that the Haunted Mansion is actually better than Pirates of the Caribbean for 2 points. There is a lot more fun theming, I felt. There was a lot of, you know, the interesting sort of gravestones and things like that, all the inside jokes that you can see, and some more storytelling within them, seeing like Madame Leota's gravestone and then seeing Madame Leota within the ride, I think is very cool. But my biggest point with the queue and my biggest problem with the queue with Pirates is just how dark it is. It felt extremely dark to me, where the benefit of Haunted Mansion, at least at Disney World, is that it's majority outside before you enter the stretching room. So whether you're at night, whether you're during the day, there's usually a lot better ambient light than something like Pirates was. It just felt really, really dark to me. And Chris, I remember when we were on that just a few months ago, I literally took out my iPhone to like take some footage of the queue, and the iPhone did some trickery where it just brightened everything up, and it actually looked better on my iPhone than it did in person. Yeah.
I remember that. And sure, you know, I think especially your eyes adjusting from the super bright Florida sunshine to going into that dark hall. I definitely agree in that sense that it's a little dark. I think it's also part of the charm, and I can only get so far in this conversation by saying the charm. But I do think I think you, as someone who, again, big fan of pirates in general. I like the idea of pirates. I like pirate stories. I have a pirate tattoo on my arm. As a pirate guy, I like the idea of, you know, you're going into an old fort. You're making your way through it. It's dark, but you're seeing the cannonballs. You're seeing the storage, the rations. And the way that the line kind of ties around, I think you never really feel like you're in this huge mega line. One of the problems I think with Haunted Mansion is that when you're in that line, you're seeing every single person waiting there, and until you get into the expanding room, you're just standing in a line. Until you get to the graves towards closer to the mansion, you're just standing in a line. Granted, you have some views of the water, and I don't think that makes. I think you're standing outside in the line, and if it's bad weather, granted you're covered, it's still not a great place to be. You don't feel that Disney magic, personally, from being in the outside of the queue there. Where in Pirates, I think you're kind of entering that story as soon as you walk into it.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that there is a lot to do with being outside in that line. I totally understand what you're saying, but I think that is for the majority of like taking in the actual mansion. And I think that like that is sort of the reason as to why you're placed outside and why you're not sort of inside immediately to sort of admire how it looks and take all of that in. But I agree, and especially on a not so nice day outside, it probably is a little bit nicer to just like immediately get into a show building and then immediately be immersed into the actual building and into that world. So I can kind of give you that point.
Magic Candle Company themed fragrances allow you to capture the smell of your most cherished vacation memories. Set sail on a swashbuckling pirate adventure. Transport back to the tropical atmosphere of a beautiful South Pacific themed resort. Relive the excitement of a fun-filled day spent on your favorite dark water rides. Soar above a California orange grove. Embark on an exotic river cruise adventure. Recall that first bite of your favorite frozen pineapple treat. Escape to your favorite rocking chair overlooking a murmuring creek as you soak in the splendor of the great outdoors. Enjoy the scent that's beloved by foolish mortals and happy haunts alike. Or even recapture the nostalgic aroma of being a kid again, watching your favorite Saturday morning cartoons. All of this and more is just a click away. Visit magiccandlecompany.com and escape to your happy place today.
Receive 15% off. Discount code DEBATE.
One of the things that I want to bring up, because the last time that we did that, we were using the lightning lane entrance. So sometimes with lightning lane, you kind of skip certain parts of the queue and different things like that. Is there anything equivalent to the stretching room in Pirates of the Caribbean, or something equivalent to like the, I don't actually know what you would call it, the library for Tower of Terror, some form of like before you go in into the rest of the line or before you enter the ride? Is there any story element or anything like that on Pirates?
There's not really, unless I'm missing something, which is always possible. So don't roast me if I am, but there isn't. You know, I do agree. You have the stretching room. You know, you have that. I think there's little that can be said in argument against that. However, you know, the stretching room, I'll say it, it's not for everyone. You are packed in there like cattle in this room. I think the effects are cool. Granted, you're not actually going down anywhere like in Disneyland and Disney World. Just the walls move up. However, there's not really, I mean, in Disneyland, there's purpose for that. They were doing that because they had to get people down or up level. I forget which way it is.
Down, yeah.
They're going down. So there's a reason for that. Disney World copied it. They very easily could have got away with it, and I know I'd get roasted for that because I'm sure this is many people's favorite part is the portraits. I know the puzzles are a big thing. People have these hanging in their walls at their homes, but I don't think there's necessarily a huge purpose besides just a little pre-show. I think you need a little pre-show. I think the hanging person at the top of the room is pretty cool, which you can miss very easily if you're not looking up. But I think it's good. I don't think it's super needed. I think it does definitely, I agree with you. It does add something to the ride though.
I think it adds a lot. And definitely with the knowledge that Disneyland is literally using the stretching room as a giant elevator. At least at the time, I think it was the biggest elevator like in the world or in the country. It was something weird like that. but such an ingenious like system to move people from one place to another without having to go downstairs or anything like that, or just actually take an elevator. I think that is so cool. But just the element, even from a Disney World perspective, where you're not moving, of just that extra element of story, I think is so incredible. And it really sets you up and primes you up for the rest of the journey. I think there might be an argument to be made for pirates in the initial sort of once you get on the boat ride.
I was going to say the same thing. Once you're on the boat, I mean, I think pirates, you do get that in a sense. It's not for the same purpose. It's a little bit different, but it kind of gets you started into that world where that's exactly what the stretching room does. It gets you into that mindset. Instead of just going straight to the ride, you're in the mindset of, I'm now in a haunted mansion. Let's go through that journey. Whereas in Pirates, same kind of thing. You enter this world of pirates. You have the pirate skeleton, where the two sides, where you kind of are in this cave where you're seeing all the skeletons. You're in the Dead Man's Cove or cave. Again, don't hit me on the words of that. I should have known that, but you enter that, and as soon as I think that pirate changes, I think that's when you're supposed to be kind of like in Haunted Mansion, right? When you go through Madame Leota, you enter the ghost world. So you kind of have that sense of, I'm turning into that. But I think it does kind of give the same purpose of that stretching room, is that it's welcoming you into the world of pirates, and then that drop kind of signifies you're in this world now. You're in the world, and this is your adventure.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of theories as far as Haunted Mansion goes on sort of, entering the ghost world, doing a lot of that. Things for pirates of the waterfall that you go down signifies entering that world. Lots of stuff like that. And I'm sure that, people look into it maybe a little bit more than the Imagineers might have, but Walt and the Imagineers definitely really thought through every single one of these points. Like we were saying, down to the fact that literally the stretching room is just an elevator to take people from one level to another. And how do we do that in a themed nature? With the stretching room, the portraits are great. The hanging man up above is great, with that element of not knowing that that's an opaque or a see-through sort of ceiling. So cool, very cool effects. But again, to bring it up once again, the narration that we have throughout Haunted Mansion, I think, is just one of the coolest things, and it makes that stretching room. Obviously, if you just had just the stretching room, it does not hit as close to home as it does when if you don't have that narration. Unbelievable way to sort of start your journey and get into that, and it really, really sets a creepy tone for the rest of the journey, which I don't think that it is the most scary haunted house that you can go on. And I definitely think that was done purposely to sort of have it be that sort of happy haunts, as they say. But having the initial sort of spook up front of the stretching room, I think, is like unbelievably important to set that tone and to make you think that at any point in time this ride could get really, really intense and really, really scary. There are those little moments, and I'm sure as a kid, I know that I was scared at a bunch of different jump scares when I was a kid going on Haunted Mansion, but I can see as a kid, like having some of those elements being extra spooky because you have all of that creepy tone set way up front in the stretching room, and the narration again just does an unbelievable job of doing that for you. And that's one of the things that I would have loved to seen from Pirates, was some version of something like that, more narration and sort of guiding you through that world just a little bit more.
That's fair. I like getting into my own story. I like that I'm the main character of this pirate's tale here. At least that's how I feel on it. I think that everyone has their own experience. It lets you build your own story. I think the benefit of, I know I said storytelling initially. I think there's light storytelling elements. I think each person that rides that ride is kind of making up their own story for each of the pirates. And I think that's fun. I think that's where you get that limitless, ride experience that you can go on this a million times, have a different experience every time. Depends where you look, depends what you're looking at. I think that is probably, while you don't have the same narration, you have the dead men tell no tales. You have the pirate animatronics talking to you, which I think is fun.
Sure.
I think
there's some really great dialogue that's going on between those pirates.
There's
and
some
sometimes
fun
even
stuff.
the interplay between pirates on one side of I guess we'll call it a river. I don't know if there's an actual, the water, if they have given that an actual name, but there's a lot of interplay back and forth between animatronics. It is very, very
There's fun
neat.
stuff. They're shooting guns. The bottles are breaking. There's a lot going on, and I think everyone can go into that and have a animatronic that's their favorite after that. You got the pig guy. I know he's a big fan favorite for sure.
That's one of my favorites, the pig man. Absolutely, the dude with all the pigs. 100%.
Yeah, and I think it's funny too. I think there's a lot of humor in the Pirates of the Caribbean where people are actually laughing. Maybe I haven't heard people laughing, but in my head, maybe I'm laughing. There's some funny stuff going on. They're simple jokes, but I think they land. I think the dog with the keys. Come on, that's funny as hell.
The dog with the keys.
That's really good.
The woman chasing the pirates around in a circle. It's a very well done effect too, and I don't think I'd ever seen that at any point in time when I'd done any research on pirates, and seeing that for the first time just recently.
So
just
that
was very, very funny.
and a lot of that has been changed. They used to be auctioning the townspeople, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes.
back in the day, they had to make these changes. They used to have the pirates chasing the women, and now women get the leg up, and they're chasing the pirates here, which is a little more appropriate, a little more funny, a little more family friendly here. So I think it's a little more of a funnier experience in that sense, as you're having these things, and they're auctioning off their chickens and things like that instead. Which is good and funny, and I like the humor that you get from that. And then you have Jack Sparrow doing his funny little peeks. I think it's good. I think it's all good.
Speaking of Jack Sparrow and some of the other like animatronics and things on the rides, one of the things that I think that Haunted Mansion does do better than Pirates of the Caribbean, and maybe outside of Jack Sparrow, you can include him for this argument. I don't think that it hurts too much, but I think that Haunted Mansion has better, more iconic characters. I really can't name any other characters other than Jack Sparrow, and then just quote the pig man. I don't know if that is the official name for that character, but I know that there are some backstories for those characters. But as far as I go, I don't know them, and I don't know many other people who do know them, and not that many people who I would grab off the street would know the Hatbox Ghost,
For
or
sure.
the Bride in the Attic, or Madame Leota is probably one of the best ones to bring up. But I think that those characters are a little more iconic. The hitchhiking ghosts, those guys, like, those are just a little bit more iconic than anything that I think is in Pirates. I don't know if you know any of the backstories of any of the pirates on that ride, or if any of that stuff is actually available.
I have no comment on that. I'll say, I'll agree in that sense that, yeah, you have the iconic aspect of some of these different animatronics. There's a few specifically, that pop out, and I don't know what that is attributed to, but I agree. I'm not sure why that is. Honestly, I really don't know why. There might just because they play bigger roles, and the quartet that sings, the sing quartet, those guys are big. And I don't know. I'm sure these were always big. For at least me and maybe my generation, seeing the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion movie, I think we got a lot of access to some of those characters initially. Sure. Maybe not, the Hatbox Ghost from what I remember. I haven't seen the movie in a while, or the Hitchhiking Ghost, which they may have been in it. I don't know. But you had the singing quartet. I mean, those guys are huge. You have Madame Leota. You kind of have the backstory it's a little bit different, I think, in the movie than in the. But speaking of that, so the bride in Haunted Mansion, I know, I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks this way. I don't think the projection mapping looks good on that.
I think it looks fine.
I think it looks fine. I think, talking about, not wanting to update the original, I think projection mapping, when done right, is incredible. Mickey and Minnie's, for instance, as far as that goes, I think is great. I think the Mine Train, I think the
Mine Train doors were pretty good. I think that was leaps and bounds better than the digital faces in the Frozen ride. Those I think are really, really bad.
I was going to actually say the opposite. I was going to say I think Elsa and Anna are leagues better than the bride. What is the bride's name?
I got to fight you on that all day, every day, just
What's the
because
bride's name? Do you know the bride's name?
the skin tone of I'm avoiding your question on purpose. The skin tone of Elsa and Anna are completely different when you're looking at the screen versus looking at the actual other parts of their animatronic face. I think that is not done as well as the Mine Train, but we can get into that argument at a different time. That's a totally other fight in its own.
That's summer in Norway. They tan differently there. Everything looks a little bit different there. I think the way that they look is better, honestly. I really think I think the Madame Leota looks fine. I think that's done well. I think that looks good. But the bride, every time I look at it, I wince a little bit.
I think it looks much better than Elsa and Anna. I can say that hands down. Is it as good as the Seven Dwarves? I think so. I think it's honestly a little better. I think that the Hatbox Ghost in his projection mapping is pretty good, but it's only good because it's just like, it's almost a different thing. Like, it almost looks worse. I think, in my opinion, the Hatbox Ghost's digital CGI projection mapping looks worse than the bride does, but it fits that character really well and it makes sense. But I still think that I'll
give you that.
Looks very, very good.
I like the Hatbox Ghost. I think that's funny. I think it's a little fun element. I like how that kind of works. But I think that looks better. I think everything above the bride. Everything above the bride. I hate it.
I cannot agree with you, and maybe I got to ride it a couple more times.
I think we need to go on it. I think you got to come down, and we need to do a detailed little video on that specifically, because
just the bride.
I'm not taking it. And I could be alone here. I mean, this could be a big opinion that this is the best looking projection mapped animatronic that Disney has, but I can't agree right now. At the last time I saw it, and again, I ride this ride many, many times. I don't like it every single time.
I thought it was completely fine. I thought it was a very good addition to the ride. I think that it looks great. But again, I don't ride the ride as much as you do. So maybe I am wrong in that assumption. But we're going to have to put up a poll on just that alone. We're going to be putting up polls for each one of these debates so that you guys can go on our Instagram and then let us know which one of these rides you think is actually better. But I think we're going to have to do a complete separate one for what is the best projection mapped animatronic. Or if you just agree with me or agree with Chris on this, if it's good or if it's bad. I think it looks fairly okay.
That's all I'm going to say on that. And you know what? I'm actually, my blood is boiling even thinking about that animatronic now. So
we got to take a break, and we got to we're going to have to watch this. We're going to have to watch some ride footage and really take a peek at that, because I honestly had no qualms with it. And I actually had more qualms with the Hatbox Ghost than I did with the bride in the attic.
That is interesting.
Okay, but I think,
let's talk about moving on from the ugly bride here. Let's talk about my favorite part of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and you may say the same thing about the Haunted Mansion. I don't think there's any more song iconic than A Pirate's Life for me.
Yeah, I think that there are. Yeah, I mean, as far as Haunted Mansion goes, I think you have music Well, I don't want to say that you have music
have
hands
Grim
down,
Grinning
but
Ghosts.
as far as memorable music, I would agree with you that in that aspect of like the iconic characters and what people off the street might know, they might be able to name a few from Haunted Mansion where they really can't do any from Pirates, but absolutely the opposite with music, where Pirates, A Pirate's Life for me, people know that tune. I don't know if anybody could sing any one of the 4 parts of the barbershop singing heads, or 5 parts, whatever they are.
And people that ride that know Disney, and I think Grim Grinning Ghost itself is an iconic song, and I think you have that there in the sense that sure, but it does not touch A Pirate's Life for me. You'll be whistling that song in your sleep. I don't think you can say the same for the Grim Grinning Ghost song. I think it's super fun.
It gives you energy. That song gives you a fun spirit and a fun energy. It fits that really well. But so does Pirate's Life. Like that, obviously. And that is probably one of the more iconic. I don't know if there probably is a list, and we might have to put one together of just like top 10, top 20 most iconic Disney songs in general, but maybe even more specifically Disney ride songs. Pirate's Life has to be very, very high up on that list in both regards, just Disney in general.
Disney in general,
like, I would think as far as Disney rides go, like It's a Small World is probably one of the only ones that might end up being higher than Pirate's Life. Like there are very few songs from any Disney ride that is as popular as that song. So hands down, I do think that you win there. I do think that the music throughout the ride is fairly on par with like the music in Pirates. I think that the background music of both of them fits the environments really, really, really well. But you definitely win for like hummability. Every person on that ride,
hummability.
Yeah, every person who comes off that thing is definitely singing that song.
I know. I'm singing it. I'm humming it. When I'm riding up the that moving walkway, it is in my head, and when I'm in that shop, I'm still singing it while I contemplate, buying a little pirate sword. So
buying insane amounts of merchandise because it's right in front of you.
I do. Man, I have a problem with Pirates merchandise. I have a problem with it. I see it and I want to buy it.
I have to say too, and not to give you more points, but I think that the, it's kind of classic Disney ride at this point where like you hop off a ride and here's a gift shop, and Mansion just really doesn't, like, there is no gift shop right as you exit, right? There's a separate building that you have to go to kind of get to a gift shop and buy some Haunted Mansion merchandise.
Yeah, they have a separate gift shop, at least at Disney World, and you know. Again, most of what we're talking about is Disney World here.
I think
just based on experience alone, but
part of their kind of update with the queue and some other things that they're doing, they're adding a shop at the end, but it's going to be very similar to Disney World, where it's going to be more detached, if I'm correct on that.
Yeah, I think the shop is nice too. They keep doing a few different designs for the Haunted Mansion stuff, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't shove merchandise in your face, I guess, in the same way that Pirates does.
Which could be nice. I guess some people could see that as a positive. Not that I see that as a complete negative, but I do think that it is fun to be immersed into that and to have those little trinkets. I think Pirates just did a really good job of having fun themed merchandise, like you're saying, like little themed Pirates toys for kids. Some of the pin options and things that we were going over when we were there last were very, very nice. Other artwork and things that were just sort of inspired by the rest of the ride, I think was done really well. And just the overall theming, it didn't feel just like a separate room, sort of the end of the ride, here's a bunch of merchandise. It felt very much a part of the ride itself, very similar to Haunted Mansion and some of the other rides that kind of do it on that next tier. But the shop for Pirates, I got to give that to you as well. I think that is much better than Haunted Mansion.
I think it just works. I think it's just different. It works. I think, with Haunted Mansion, you walk out and you can take a picture with the ghost horse. I mean, that's fun. There's something you can do there. But yeah, I mean, I think It just depends. I'm a sucker for a shop, and if you know me, I like buying merchandise. I can't get enough of merchandise, so I'm buying stuff quite a bit, and I like to see that every time. And Disney does a really good job of updating their merchandise all the time. I think they always come out with something new, something cool, and I do like that aspect of Pirates for sure.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of good opportunity, and I know that Disney has a lot of great Haunted Mansion merchandise, but I do kind of wish it was a little more shoved in my face. I would be absolutely fine with picking up some of that stuff, and I think next time that we go down to the parks together, we're going to have to do sort of a more in-depth sort of look at all the merchandise that they have on some of these rides too, and sort of compare and battle those, because it would be really interesting to sort of go toe for toe, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, between the fun themed toys, t-shirts, other apparel,
sure.
and especially pins. I think pins would be very interesting to go toe for toe and see what they have at that given time. And even maybe looking back into some of the past pins, things that are retired now.
Yeah, they recently
sort of fun to compare.
got some new pirate pins, and Haunted Mansion's been rebranding their merchandise recently in the past couple of years. They've actually come out with some pretty cool stuff. They have some really cool designs for, again, a lot of their merchandise, but a lot of their pins too. Pirates has kind of stuck with the same. There's some new Pirates pins, but yeah, I mean, I think seeing a toe-to-toe of the pins, even if we just brought them up for, on a post on social media of the pins comparing it, I think that would be a good idea for sure.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned to the Instagram, particularly where we can do polls and things, but as well TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and we'll be posting up some of that stuff as well. We'll sort of compare and contrast some pins and some other merchandise as well. Chris, any other final arguments? Anything else that you wanted to bring up to sort of defend Pirates on why it's potentially better than Haunted Mansion? I don't think it is. I don't think we've put up enough of an argument, but I want to give you one more opportunity to try to beat Haunted Mansion, the greatest Disney ride of all time.
I'll say, I guess this is that you're having two of the most iconic Disney rides ever created, from Disneyland to Disney World. Two rides that, again, I'm going on every single time. I'm not going to miss them when I go. I'm going to Genie if I have to go, or just go on a weekday and not wait too long in a line. Thankfully, with Pirates, they move those guys along. So, I mean, I feel like a 20-minute wait can be pretty typical for Pirates, where Haunted Mansion, you're going to be waiting a little bit longer, usually in the queue.
So that just shows that it is the superior ride, right? Because more people are trying to go on it, hence the wait times.
I think it's just slower.
And it's a faster system.
I think it's slower.
But it is a faster system in general, right? So think about that if it is a faster ride system in general, even if we do have one or two stoppages in that sort of thing, then we're probably at least on par with how fast the rides are moving. Therefore, I think I win.
I don't know. I think Pirates is a little bit of a longer experience too. So I listen. I don't know too much. I also think Haunted Mansion itself has gotten a recent boost of popularity with the new movie that came out.
The new movie, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's been big for it. I think Disney has really been pushing Haunted Mansion. Again, probably the new movie, but I think that we really beat these two rides to death here. I think we went over most things that I would have thought about just as someone that rides the ride a lot. I think that we came up with some good arguments. I think overall, Pirates did take the cake. I think it's a far better ride, and I think everything I said really proved it. But overall, no, I like Pirates. I think it has that timeless, appeal to the ride that you're really not getting in anything else. I mean, everyone knows Pirates of the Caribbean. Sure, you can say the same thing about Haunted Mansion. That's fine. But ultimately, which franchise did better? I mean, do kids want to be in a ghost story, or do they want to be a pirate?
They want both, and that's why you go to Magic Kingdom to experience both. It's
to get
number one
magic.
And number two.
There you go.
Wherever you rank them yourself, 1 or 2, it's some of the best rides at Disney. Definitely some of the best dark rides at Magic Kingdom. But we want to hear from you guys, so we're going to be putting up a poll on Instagram. Which one is better, Haunted Mansion, clearly, or Pirates of the Caribbean if you prefer. Make sure to go check out our stories on Instagram. We're going to be running those polls for a little bit, and we're going to come back and hopefully have some information for you on who actually takes the cake. So make sure to stay tuned to our feed on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. You can find us at all three at Dis or That Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube Shorts. Make sure to check out all of what we got going on social media. We should have probably figured out a way to wrap these bad boys up.
I think that's a great way to wrap it up. I think you nailed it. I think that's all that we need to do. I think that's a great way to end, number one, our first little episode here. I think this sets us up for number two. And I think we will catch you guys next time.
We'll see you guys next time. The happiest debate on earth. Thank you for joining us for the first episode of Dis or That.
This podcast was brought to you by the Magic Candle Company. Relive your favorite theme park memories through the magical sense of smell. Receive 15% off at checkout by using discount code DEBATE and help our channel in the process.